Was really long, sorry, had to get it out. I'm male, 52, lost my first wife 10 years ago. At the time, 2 daughters were now 21 and 24. Life went on after about 3 years. I met my current wife, 38. We met innocently enough, basically kept bumping into her at various places around town. We never really talked, sometimes made eye contact, pointed at each other at a distance, and just smiled. Then one day, while getting my car worked on, she walked into the waiting room while hers was being worked on as well. So we finally had a long conversation. He went across the street to get real coffee, as the service center was bad. He talked for about an hour. Then I was paged, mine was done. I asked if she would like to do lunch one day to continue talking. We exchanged numbers and set a day to meet up. Plus, we dated for 2 years, then got married. She has 2 boys, now 10 and 14. They moved into my house after living with her parents for 3 years. My girls loved her, not as a stepmom but as a big sister. Although having another adult in the house with 2 teenage girls was a blessing. Life is grand. I love those boys as if they were my own. I want to adopt them when they can make a decision on their own. The little one calls me Dad. The oldest found it awkward. I told him to call me whatever he felt comfortable, even my first name. The girls called her by her name. My wife is like a mom to them. We decided to wait until the kids were adjusted. Hectic now. She doesn't want to work, but does volunteer at school lunches and other things. Daughter 1 goes off to college and has now graduated. The younger daughter graduated this past morning. We are moving the rest of her things this weekend. I was told her ex abandoned them about the time baby number 2 came along and has had no contact since. Her mom is very nice, but holds me at arm's length. He is an alpha dog. I don't think he wanted anyone else taking care of his daughter, his only child and grandkids. He would berate me because I was too old, not much younger than them. This would happen anytime I was around them. I am non-confrontational, so I told my wife I would just stay away from them. I did encourage her to continue the relationship as they only live a couple blocks away. In February this year, her ex reappears, wanting to be in their lives. He is sketchy at best. I cannot refuse this. He starts coming around often. I set a boundary that he comes on weekends so as not to interfere with school, and we can control his visitation somewhat. He comes most weekends, but really spends little time alone with the kids as we try to give him space. I asked my wife if he made any child support payments while he was gone. No. Ethereums. I suggested to her to talk to him about getting caught up on whatever he owes and to ask about signing over rights so I could adopt. She said she would talk to him. First part of March, our ex-slave starts to dive. You know where this is going, right? But I am oblivious. I mentioned to my wife. She has the usual excuses. I noticed little things around the house are different. My favorite snacks are gone. Missing a few beers, not a big drinker. Just one every now and then. But the big one was I could smell what I thought was weed. I asked my wife if she was smoking, as we don't, she hasn't. I thought the now 14 years old suggested we talk with him. She said she would handle it. So about 2 weeks ago, a 14 years old asked me if I love mom. I said yes, thinking he has a girlfriend. I'm for a talk, right? He says that we always sat together, and were touching each other some way or other. This made him feel good. He asks if mom loved his dad. I responded that sure, on some level she does. He replies that they are always looking at each other, talking and touching. And he is over all the time. I asked what he meant by all the time. As almost every day when they get home from school, he is there then leaves. That weekend I am in the living room. He is over for visitation. He comes in and sits down across from me with a beer. I look up from my reading and tell him to help himself to a beer. He says nothing. I ask why isn't he with the kids. I could hear laughing coming from the family room. He said he might go in a little bit. I tell him I will not drink in front of the kids. I wait until after they are in bed. He says nothing. He then states, "You know, I am only here for her." What does that mean? You're talking about my wife. He says technically not divorced. He never signed papers, so she is his wife. I know a judge signed off on divorce because he could not be found. That's why it took longer to divorce. I finally ask about the child support since I never heard back. He just looked at me and said that he was caught up, paid her $15,000 in cash. I asked then if she talked to him about giving up rights. Never asked. He asked what would it be worth to me. I said, "You got to be kidding, you would sell your kids." But before he could answer, I told him to leave. The next day, this past Sunday, the kids were at Grandma and Grandpa with my wife. I bought and installed a camera. I put it on top of the TV. It's very small. It has a view of the front door and living room. Motion activated. Nothing unusual until Wednesday about 10 a.m. I get an alert on my phone when the camera activates. So I am at work. I get a notice. I figure it's the wife cleaning up, but I look anyways. He comes back, she lets him in, they kiss for a long time. He starts grabbing at her, she playfully pushes away, and they are laughing. There's no sound. He sits on the couch, and she brings him a beer and snacks. At 10 a.m., she disappears. She's back a few minutes later, clothes changed, and she is going to school for lunch. They're talking, more grabbing, more pushing away, and more laughing. A few minutes later, she is up getting ready to leave. He gets up, grabs her again, makes some gestures, then poses like he is praying with his hands together. They sit down again, and then she gives him head. She finishes up, goes out of range, comes back, says something, and then leaves. He then watches TV and takes a nap. The screen eventually goes blank. Action a little after 1 p.m. Another alert. She is home. They talk, and they both leave the room. I know they are headed to the bedroom. I race home and find them. They never heard me coming. There is the hysterics you would expect. He slithers out. I tell her she has to go. She pleads it was a one-time mistake. He had just got there. She was lonely because we weren't having sex, etc. I called the police. I asked how often he came over, just the weekends. This was an anomaly. I showed the video of him napping. She said he was tired and asked. Then I showed her the BJ. She had nothing to say. I told her to pack her bags, she is out. I left and called her dad to take them in. We were having issues. He of course takes the alpha position, telling me how I would screw this up, yada yada. I couldn't get a word in. Finally, I stopped him, asked again. He said yes, then started on me again. I had enough. I said I would send him something. I sent the video edited down to the BJ. I told him to view and call me back if I was wrong. I never heard back. I talked to a lawyer on Thursday. He helped with the estate plan after my first wife. He referred me to a partner who does family law. We will meet on Tuesday and the divorce will happen. He felt, but did not know for sure, that I would be on the hook for support for the kids, no alimony, since she broke our prenup. I made it up before marriage, in addition to an estate plan to protect my girls. I don't care about the support. I'm glad to do it. It's the boys. So, my question or advice needed. Has anyone else been through a divorce and was able to see their ex's kids, even if they are not yours? How did that go? The 14-year-old is partially vulnerable. As vulnerable as he will be in high school next year, these formative years are crucial. I don't want to see him go down the wrong path and end up like his dad. Thank you all in advance for your help. Update. I apologize if this update seems disorganized. I initially posted in the wrong subreddit. This is the umpteenth time I have written this out, and each time it gets shorter. I'm not sure how to cross-post, so I am retyping. Please bear with me. Last week was hectic with my daughter's graduation, moving her back home, kids' sports starting, meeting with the lawyer, and the first face-to-face meeting with my wife. I arrived home on Sunday and put my daughter's belongings from her apartment in the garage. In the early evening, I received a call from my 14-year-old son. He asked to Dad, "What's going on? No one is talking to us. Mom and Grandma are crying, and Grandpa's yelling. Is this because of what I told you?" I assured him that his mom had made a mistake and that he had nothing to do with the situation. He also asked if I was packing up their stuff because he saw the U-Haul in the driveway. I explained what had happened and reassured him that all their belongings were still there. On Monday and Wednesday, we had sports nights. The family sat in the bleachers while I stood behind the home plate backstop, my usual spot since I don't see eye to eye with Phil. On the way across the field, my oldest son stopped his warm-up and ran over to me. We hugged and talked for a few minutes before I sent him back. As I reached my spot, a 10-year-old crashed into me at full speed. I bent down, hugged, and kissed him all over as he squirmed away. Phil asked if we could talk, and we stepped away from earshot. He apologized for the way he had treated me in the past and admitted that he was wrong. It was a little late, but I accepted and acknowledged that it was a difficult thing for him to do. He invited me to sit with them, but I declined. He asked if I wanted to talk to my wife, and I said Thursday would be better. We set a time and place. On Tuesday, I met with the lawyer and told him the whole story. He already knew from his partner but wanted to hear it from me. He asked what I wanted to do, and I expressed my desire to stay with the boys and remain married. The boys were the most important consideration. He stated, based on his experience, that the marriage would be a charade and not good for the boys. He suggested that we could work out a visitation schedule if my wife was willing. Just regarding support, he said I could do what I wanted for the boys and advised against giving her anything for me to control. The prenup was solid and she had violated its conditions, so there would be no support. However, he cautioned that judges in other parts of the country have, in some instances, ordered child support in similar cases due to the long-standing involvement in the children's lives. He did not think our judges have ruled that way in the past, but you never know. He was certain that her attorney would seek support and suggested that we try to come to an agreement. We tried to agree on everything we could before court, though the judge would look favorably on us. Before leaving, he told me that every Monday morning, the partners meet to discuss new and ongoing cases. My previous attorney started out describing everything. Each partner has a specialty: estate planning, elder law, criminal liability, and family. Veteran Tag Pam, the criminal lawyer, meets up with my attorney. After the meeting, he called a contact in the prosecutor's office. The $15,000 did not seem right. How do folks in the middle class have $15,000 in cash laying around? Turns out X did not abandon them. He was in jail. He was released 3 years ago, when feds were releasing nonviolent criminals to ease overcrowding, etc. He was sure the police would be interested if he was back and practicing his profession again, but he did not have any other info but the jail time. The Thursday, I meet with Y the and felt. I asked if they minded if I recorded, so there would be no misinterpretation later. Thanks, the great. Before we started, wife wanted to talk privately. Phil moved to another room. Wife started to apologize. I cut her off. I said, before you say anything, know that I know a lot more than you think. I asked how long the sex. She said the one time. I told her the video shows that is not true. I played a clip of her dusting the tea. She never saw the camera. I know it was only a few days, but she was going to lie. So I was too. She thought it was part of the video game. It's not big, but it is obvious on top of tea. She admitted since March almost right away. I told her no more lies. I told her of the family secret, that he was in jail, not running away. She admitted to this also. I asked how long in contact. Since February. I asked if she met up any time before him appearing. She said no. I then told her he had been out for 3 years. The look on her face told me she did not know. We get Phil back in. Turn on recorder. I asked if she had a lawyer. No. I told her to get one because a divorce will happen. They both asked if something along reconciliation could take place. I said no. I said I wanted the boys. She could live with X. I told her when speaking privately that X tried to sell me the boys. I repeated for Phil. We settled on the boys could see me anytime within reason. She would not keep me from them. I said I would provide at my choosing. She would get no support. I did not want her getting the boys to ask me for things. They would be honest if I asked. There you have it. One last thing. For this site, we have our favorite subs. We would read and share. It was a thing we did together. She has read my post as she figured it out, and she read every reply you made. She stated you savaged her. You said many things I only wish I could have because I did feel it. For that, I thank you.